Hi, my name is Lorelei. I'm in 10th grade, and this is my second year in academy. And this is what I did this year. I promised the mind map will become smaller and more enlarged as the presentation goes on. But for my project, most people in my class did a one project per marking period, but I decided to stretch my project throughout the whole year. What I did was I created an advice website for teenagers run by teenagers. And I did this because I don't have an older sibling figure in my life, and whenever I needed advice, I would look on the internet. And I'd find articles written by adults telling me what I should do. And I didn't really like that because the adults were obviously older than me and grew up in a different generation. And so I searched for someone who wrote something that I could relate to, and I couldn't find it, so I decided to make it myself. So before I started the process of making the website, I had to see if there was anything actually like mine. I did some more digging and I found out that no, there was truly nothing like my idea. So I tried jumping right into making the website and researched things like safeguards and the money involved, and I got totally stressed out. So Mr. Daly had to reel me back in and let me know that I wasn't just creating a website, that I was starting a brand. So to do that, I had to start by doing branding research. And when I say branding, I mean logo work, company statements, the names, anything the viewer sees and makes the company recognizable. This is important because the brand is how the company, as I said, will be recognized. And the branding is what the viewer will see. So I found lots of resources and decided to start by making a branding statement. I reached out to my fellow humanities student Daniel, who was working on branding aspects like me at this time. I wrote my branding statement, gathered feedback from the class, and revised from that feedback. My dad also gave me the email of a marketing employee that works at his work named Mrs. DePaul. And I reached out to her and she gave me feedback. My final branding statement was to provide helpful tips and quality advice for teenagers, given by people they can relate to. Now, I thought this was the best branding statement ever created, but I was wrong. Because after another feedback session, I found out that this sounded like a mom who was trying to connect with her kids. So, big shout out to Daniel, Josh, and Jonah for telling me that. I also did a bunch of logo work with my project, as you can see here from this slide. And you can interact and give me feedback on my logos at my table outside. In case you haven't realized yet, this project is my child. I am super passionate about it. And so when it came time to name my website, I found myself struggling. I spent classes drafting, I reached out for feedback, and I suffered for weeks trying to come up with a perfect name. I suffered so much that I spent some classes just banging my head on the table. I asked my classmates on names that I thought were good, gathered their feedback. I tried a mix and match process that Mr. Daly suggested to try and come up with a really good name. Nothing came of that. And I tried looking for symbolic imagery, which was a suggestion from Ms. Furphy, an English teacher here who was subbing for the day. Finally, after weeks and weeks of doing this, I talked to my freshman year humanities teacher, Mr. Hansen, and finally came up with the name Compass, with the tagline to advice to help you find your way. So that was the end of the second marking period, and I felt like I went out with a bang, and I feel like I couldn't top myself. So I decided to try and start building the website. So this served as a problem because I had absolutely no website experience. I really can't even set up the voicemail on my phone. But yet, I found myself jumping into this process, not scared. I recognize this as courage. I'm the kind of girl that doesn't raise her hand in class in fear of getting the question wrong. I get nervous when presenting, never when performing, but that's a different story. And I bet you would have never expected that from me, because now I'm standing here presenting in front of all of you, and I'm completely calm. Younger me would have fainted. Now, it's still a process, but I'm trying to put myself out there more. I take choir here at MHS, and for our final, we have to do a project on a composer. For the second part of this project, we have to either analyze or perform a piece by said composer. And fun fact, I've played piano since first grade. Usually I would have hid that talent and opted to analyze a piece, but I found myself asking my choir teacher, Mr. Brown, if I could perform a piece by Bach in front of the class, something I would have never done 2 years ago. So with my courage intact, I had to figure out whether I wanted to code the website from scratch or design it using a design site like those listed on the board. I gathered feedback from senior humanities student Seb, who's working on design aspects like mine, my teacher, Mr. Daly, and Mr. Kennedy, a teacher at Frelinghuysen who was very talented in web design. After many conversations with Mr. Kennedy, I decided to use a web design site because of my lack of time and my lack of experience. But then I had to decide which site I had to use. I was debating between Wix, WordPress, and Squarespace. And after consulting Mr. Kennedy again, I decided on WordPress. Now when I told everybody I had decided on WordPress, people warned me not to use it. They said I couldn't do it with my little experience and that WordPress was impossible. But I, maybe stupidly, ignored them and persevered. So WordPress does not work on school Chromebooks, and I don't have a MacBook or a suitable computer at home. So I had to go find a different resource, but I was resilient when I faced this problem. Mr. Daly mentioned that our school's graphic design teacher, Mr. Boothie, was always available to talk to humanities students. So I went to him, and he was extremely helpful. He gave me my own little iMac and my own little room, as you can see here from the side. Mr. Boothby never doubted my abilities and helped me throughout this entire journey, so a huge thank you goes out to him. And surprisingly, with some guidance and practice, WordPress was really easy. But some designing was hard for me because I was being a little closed-minded. So change is really hard for me. I'm a really stubborn and imaginative person, which is kind of the worst combination for this project. So if something did not turn out the way I wanted it to, or didn't look the way I wanted it to look, I would get extremely frustrated. I wanted this site to be exactly how I imagined it. Now that was hard because I was working on a free program and little to none web experience. And it took a really, really long time, and I'm still working on it, but I learned to be okay with WordPress and its limited abilities. I kept an open mind and realized that since the program is free, the site would never turn out how I imagined it. And this has carried into my life immensely. I recently decided to replace a bulletin board in my room because I felt like it looked too babyish. I envisioned replacing this board with a cork board that I would eventually turn into an inspiration board, such as this one. When I went to Michael's to buy a new cork board, I found that they didn't have anything that would fit on my wall, or anything that fit my vision. After going to several other stores, I found that no board had the measurements I needed, and none fit my vision. Usually I would have gotten upset and angry, but I reminded myself to keep an open mind. My mom suggested that I buy a chalkboard, and because of my new open-mindedness, I said yes. So it seemed as soon as I started to design this website, I had to finish up and get ready for Humanities Night. So I never got to finish my website. I failed at my original goal. But looking back, I didn't really fail. I learned new skills, mastered WordPress, and started to build a brand. And even did things a few months ago that I never would have thought I could. As for the future, I don't know whether or not I will continue with this project. I learned that as easy as WordPress is, web design is not for me. It's tedious and frustrating. But maybe I can build a team, ask someone to design the site for me while I deal with branding and writing advice, aspects about this project that I really do enjoy. My future with Compass is still up in the air, but I do know that I'm extremely grateful for this year and all the things I've learned throughout. Thank you.